The Trump administration is ramping up ICE raids on illegal immigrants at places of business, at job sites, and even high school graduations and birthday parties all over the place. And now there are protests, some peaceful but mostly violent, in Los Angeles. And celebrities who live in Los Angeles in the rich enclaves away from all the chaos are speaking out against these ruthless attacks from the Trump administration.
Out off their balconies.
Literally, like
into the valley.
This is worse than the Gal Gadot Imagine video back in COVID days, for sure. So the first of them is Kim Kardashian, who actually has become sort of a political adjacent figure with her visits to the White House and studying law.
I would also think of her as a politically nonpartisan political figure most of the time because she's willing to work with either administration.
And a lot of people thought that she voted for Trump, actually, because of her promotion of Tesla products and her relationship with a Tesla Optimus robot.
That means that she loves Elon, not Trump. Now she's like, Elon told me he's a bad guy.
They used to be a package deal at one point. So this was Kim Kardashian's Instagram post. When we're told that ICE exists to keep our country safe and remove violent criminals, great. But when we witness innocent, hardworking people being ripped from their families in inhumane ways, we have to speak up. We have to do what's right. Growing up in LA, I've seen how deeply immigrants are woven into the fabric of this city. They are our neighbors, friends, classmates, coworkers, and family. No matter where you fall politically, it's clear that our communities thrive because of the contributions of immigrants. We can't turn a blind eye when fear and injustice keep people from living their lives freely and safely. There has to be a better way.
There is. It's like you come in through the front door and you file legal papers, and then you get your citizenship after a green card. And or you go talk to what's his name and get an H-1B visa.
True. To Vivek.
Yeah. He could do that. This is I like the description that like what we're looking at right now is the political movement of the Overton window in the last 10 years being very, very dramatic. If I was to use TV examples, I would tell you that TV shows have talked about ICE and immigration and these things for decades, and it was never a controversial topic. If we're going to talk about real world examples, you could look at the 3 million people that Barack Obama deported, arguably more if you count the ones who were turned away at the border that were counted as deportations, though that, that kind of accounting is dubious in nature, or the many, many millions that Bill Clinton deported. And you look at to the way things swiftly change in 2016 when after the Obama administration and they started actually caring about illegal immigration rather than being something that every political party and every political candidate, especially those for president, paid lip service to for years and years and years without doing anything about, then you see how things have changed so drastically in just 10 years. Well, 9 years.
Yeah, I thought that the vibe had shifted to the point where celebrities wanted to stay out of these controversies, with the exception of Selena Gomez crying on her Instagram about, her Mexican brothers and sisters and her extended family of nationality. And it's funny because no one was really kicking up a fuss for the most part for the last 150 or so days of Trump's presidency, his second term. The deportation numbers beforehand were in the hundreds per day, and they were targeted raids on known criminals and gangs. Now it's ramped up to, I believe they're saying about 2,500 a day deportations, and I would like to see it stay that way, if not get to a higher number. But Kim Kardashian doesn't feel the same way, and she is a crusader for humanitarian rights of criminals. She loves the idea of freeing people from prison for their non-violent drug offenses.
I will give her credit. She's consistent.
I mean, sure, fine. Katy Perry also threw in her 2 cents, posting this to her Instagram saying, Los Angeles, a place that literally began as, wait for my awful pronunciation, El Pueblo de Nuestra Señora la Reina de Los Angeles de Porciuncula. don't know. Founded by Mexican settlers in 1781, this was once Mexican land, and the people being targeted today are often descendants of those who have lived here for generations, or who came seeking safety, work, and dignity. That's funny. The key word there being they're seeking work. They're seeking our jobs. They're seeking the jobs that rightfully belong to Americans who were born here. They're mostly coming here for economic reasons. They're economic migrants, and they're also willing to settle for much lower wages than native population. But this was clarified by Evita Duffy Alfonso. Los Angeles was founded by the Spanish Empire. This is the same Katy Perry who tried to steal a convent from elderly nuns until one of them collapsed and died in court. That is a true story. Katy Perry has no respect for anyone's personal property and has come after the homes of multiple elderly people in Los Angeles, just trying to enrich herself, and she doesn't care about stepping on anyone for her own personal gain. But it's a different story when it's ICE trying to remove people who are either a danger to society or are disrespecting our civil order. And then Sarah Stock also posted a clarification about this claim that California is rightful Mexican land. It was only Mexican land for 27 years before the U.S. won it. Before that, it was under Spanish rule. Even in 1850, California was 95% white and stayed that way until the 1960s. And I thought Katy Perry was a Republican. She voted for Rick Caruso for mayor, right?
Yeah.
Back in, what was that, 2022, I believe?
Or 2023.
A lot of her fans actually were mad at her for that. And then she ended up moving to Kentucky, I believe. Was one of the celebrities that exited from, the LA Hollywood world. And she definitely was making some Republican coded decisions. But I guess her value system has not changed over time. And then Eva Longoria added in her own thoughts. Link Lauren jokes,
are we gonna listen to the whole
immigration policy expert Eva Longoria isn't happy with the deportations.
Are we listening to all 4 minutes of this? This is
no,
long.
let's listen to the first minute and a half, because after that it's just...
wanted to get on here and finally compose myself to do a message because of everything that's happening with the mass deportations. Every time I try to record a message, I just start crying, and then I don't want it to be about me and my emotions about it, but it's just so inhumane, hard to watch. It's hard to witness from afar. I can't imagine what it's like to be in Los Angeles right now. I can't believe it's happening in Austin, Texas. I can't believe it's happening all over the country. And the comments and people's reactions to it is really so surprising to me, because it is un-American. We all can agree nobody wants criminals in our country. Nobody wants rape.
I actually think celebrities just a few years ago wouldn't have even made the qualifying statement like, we all agree that we don't want violent criminals in this country. They wouldn't even say that.
Yeah.
So maybe that is proof that things are shifting, but we'll let her go
Nobody
on.
wants drug dealers. Nobody wants bad.
That's not necessarily true. That Kilmar Albrego Garcia guy has a lot of people that want him here in this country. He's a Maryland man, after all.
We have a 20 before we continue from Thomas Williams. Here is to my last night in my 20s, rolling on to 30s. Love you guys. Been listening since last year. Been using you guys to flush my brain after Timcast time zone difference.
Well, we're glad we could help you, I guess, be less serious.
We got another birthday, though. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
On the big 3-0.
Actors in our country. That's not what's happening. These roundups are happening in birthday parties, in elementary graduations, Home Depot.
Womp womp.
Those are not criminals. And I just hope that everybody has more compassion to this issue and realize we have industries dependent on immigrant labor.
Who's going to
pick the cotton?
Who's going to pick the cotton? Who's going to clean your toilet, Donald Trump?
Yes, they love the idea of a serf class, of a slave class of citizens to do all of the menial labor that they claim Americans would never do, yet they also want to speak about workers' rights and not acknowledging the way that this practice drives down wages.
These are people who feed us and take care of us and take care of
These
our
are
families
servants.
and our children and
won't you think of
our
the
communities,
servants?
and we can't deny them as humans.
Okay, shut her mouth. We have another 20 from Willem. So these Hollywood idiots should give their... Oh, thank you.
Hold, please.
So these Hollywood idiots should give their land back to Mexico since they're settlers, I guess. Also, did you all ever mention the Snow White re-release? Last, I think there'll be great documentary opportunities this week. I don't know if that's what you meant. We did talk about the Snow White re-release and how that also bombed. And yeah, they are admitting in their own estimation, California is not rightful American land, it's Mexican land. So why are you there? Yeah. You're a colonial settler.
Look, and the other argument that everyone's going to make is you're welcome to sponsor as many as you can for citizenship and let them live on your property. All of these arguments back and forth. I will acknowledge.
Won't you think of my housekeeper and my personal chef?
I will
and
say,
my contractor who's adding a new addition to my Calabasas mansion.
Yeah.
Won't you think of them? You just don't have compassion. You're just a bad person.
Yeah. I will say that for the people that aren't celebrities in this context, who do, the reason why some of these fights break out with ICE is because they do go into neighborhoods. And for people who grow up next to someone and they don't see them as a criminal, they don't see them as the problem, they're going to develop an emotional connection to that person in a way that somebody who's looking on the macro scale about what it means for our country, they're not going to take the same position on that. So I understand that. I understand acknowledging the human element of all of this. But the thing is that's why I would never want to be a CEO. It's why I would never want to be the president, is that based on your policies and how you believe the path forward is, the good that must be done isn't always going to be easy. And a lot of the time when you have these types of things break out, I do think that this is the result of the Overton window being pushed so very drastically far in one direction in just 8 to 10 years. I don't think 10 years ago that this would have been a controversial outing. Again, look at the sheer amount of people that Donald Trump is actually deporting. It's actually the Republicans who love the guy that should be angry, because he was promising mass deportations, and here we are, and he's falling under Obama, and he's falling under Clinton, and he's falling under Bush.
That's what I was complaining about for the last few months.
You know,
I agree.
Depending on where you sit on the political spectrum, everyone's got a right to be angry in this one.
Well, since you bring up the human side of this issue, I would be willing to hear that perspective perhaps from an ordinary person, but we are hearing it instead from mega wealthy, isolated celebrities who are speaking from their ivory towers, who don't know or care about any of these individuals, and they simply want to virtue signal and cry on Instagram. I don't believe them when they say they're the compassionate side of this issue. They're on the right side of history. They just want servants. They just want a servant class. They basically admitted to that. And I also have a bunch of these examples of TikTokers.
Wait, who is it? Okay, so
these are TikTokers.
I know people in bikini tops is who I think of when I go for strong political discourse.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny? Everyone who felt comfy enough to out themselves that they voted for Trump back in January, they're dead silent right now.
Not if you go on X.
No. That might be true on TikTok, but no, I think that people who voted for Trump are very happy about this.
Dead silent.
Apprehending them and taking them away from their families and their jobs and the lives they've built here doesn't bother you, then you're a bad person.
You're just a bad person.
Making them work jobs where they're paid fundamentally far less than an American citizen with none of the protections that American citizens are supposed to have would make you a bad person.
Look at her stupid smug face.
And I don't want to be your friend. and I don't care about your opinion.
And you're just a big meanie
I say this
head.
in the most disrespectful way possible as a first-generation American whose parent is not from this country. If you got here and you got papers and you agree with what's going on right now, fuck you.
If you
came here by legal means and did what was required of you to enter this country legally, and you don't support people who didn't do that, fuck you.
Yeah.
Also, maybe the best thing you could do for this, sorry to interrupt, but maybe the best thing that you could ask is put yourself in the position of them in another country and imagine how you would feel if you went to another country and overstayed your welcome and were then, removed. Would you consider them to be bad people for taking you away from someplace you don't have the legal means to be? Or were they simply a nation looking after their own interests and following suit with their own?
Well, you know what else? All of the people that you're seeing in these videos who are, throwing rocks at vans, and they're throwing Molotov cocktails and starting fires and assaulting people. All of those people, they're not, rich celebrities who are out of touch. They are not protesting because they have a neighbor or a friend or a family member who they have a bleeding heart for. They're doing it because they've been radicalized online, probably by content just like this on their algorithms. And what you're about to see here is a so-called female comedian who is telling other people with a platform that if they're not using it to speak out against this, well, they just don't deserve to have a following, and they're a bad person.
you are a resident of Los Angeles, California, and you have a large platform on this app on the internet, and you have decided, you have made the conscious choice to not speak out against the ICE raids that are taking place in this city right now, the attack that Los Angeles is feeling in this moment, if you are not sticking your head out for your own community, this
Bro, posting something on TikTok doesn't do shit.
city of Los Angeles in which you live, that you benefit so much from, if you can't do that, you do not deserve your platform, and maybe you should fucking move.
Let's not tell the illegals to move. Let's tell the people who actually were born and raised in LA that they should move if they don't like being invaded.
What you're experiencing now is also the quintessential female technique of ostracization to form social compliance.
Yes, and it's just moments like this especially where, like, I hope people are watching the response to this and they learn something from it. What I've noticed is that it's all women. It's all women who are posting about this, both the celebrities and the TikTokers alike. It's all women because they have a misplaced maternal instinct that
they're not having kids.
Exactly, that they're placing on migrants.
Coupled with 2 decades of America forming into a form of suicidal empathy, which is it started born out of white guilt and self-hatred, and has now become a form of they have a certain chip on their shoulder in a weird way, but also they feel inadequate because they feel like others have been born with this special privilege. They're the ones with the privilege, but the other ones have this status as being oppressed, and that if they do not fall in line with that and help bolster that idea, they will be put out to pasture. Suicidal empathy is something that's rampant in America right now.
Allie Beth Stuckey wrote an entire book about toxic empathy and how that is weaponized against women to politically condition them on an endless list of issues, including, abortion, including immigration, countless things. And that's just how they vote. So, I mean, repeal the 19th?
Look, you can't undo.
I know that's never going to happen. These are the moments where I feel like rage baiting about it, because it's like, this is clearly the fault of people exactly like the women in these videos.
I would just ask anybody, who falls dramatically on the opposite side of the aisle with this one to ask what would be the responsibility of another country if you and everyone you knew en masse went and lived in another country when you weren't supposed to be there, and then expected the system to just absorb them and not do what's right for their citizens, which is actually the purpose of government when it runs efficiently, which is never, is to take care of their citizenry.
Let's also ask them how they would feel if they didn't eat breakfast this morning.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.